YouTubers. I wanted to do another game for you guys. This time it's going to be uh, for the repertoire for white, and I wanted to look at a line in the French defense and an attack that called the Alekhine-Chatard Attack, and I'll show you the opening moves real quick. So it's an opening that you can use against the French defense. And you could play the main line. If you play the main line, knight c3 here, knight f6. And I wanted to just briefly mention on this bishop b4 move. You're going to see a lot, and in which case I would recommend just playing e5, c5, and you'll see these lines come up a lot, but I might cover that in another video. But what I wanted to show was against the classical French, not the winnow war, and bishop g5 here, bishop b7, and again you'll also see the McCutcheon variation with bishop b4 in this line, and you'll have to know that as well. But normally this is met with e5, and that's a line that you have to either study on your own, or I may come out with a video about the McCutcheon variation as well. But I wanted to focus on the main line of the French, the classical variation, and e5 is the main move here. And the knight goes back to d7 typically. Sometimes you'll see it go back to e4, but this usually ends up winning you a pawn. You can study that line on your own. And normally what happens in this line is that since the bishops are confronting each other, white takes on e7, and if queen takes on e7, white plays f4 followed by knight f3, and usually the bishop goes to d3, and we get a typical French main line. However, white also has another possibility here, which is a good move, which is h4, and that's where the Alekhine-Chatard attack begins. And in this lecture, we're going to see what happens if black castles, but in the later games, we're going to look at other moves. We're going to look at what happens if black accepts the gambit and takes the bishop on g5, and after white retakes, black would take with the queen, and white would come out with knight h3, and usually follow up with queen g4, bishop d3. This will all be covered in the later videos, but in another video we'll cover what happens on c5, and another one a6, and all three of those moves, by the way, or all four of those moves are pretty good moves for black, and you have to do your homework on the line. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about what happens after castling, and I have a game here from 2007 between Ivan Popov and Dmitry Andreikin, and that was played in this line. Both those players are over 2,500, and what happened in this game was bishop d3 was played. Another way that you could, if you wanted to play, is just queen g4, and this sort of just adds defense to the bishop on g5, and also g4 is the good square for the queen. You'll see queen g4 come up a lot of times in these lines, but bishop d3 is actually the best move, and bishop d3 is a very attacking move. Still not worried about black trying to win material here, and and c5 is the move that was played. So clearly, if black greedily took this bishop on g5, and after white took, the queen would take, and the knight would come to h3, and this would be actually really good. Queen h5 can be an idea, or possible sacrifices on h6 would be something black would have to worry about here. c5 was played in the game, but f5 is also a very popular way to play. And instead of taking en passé like this, since this square is adequately defended by 3 pieces, it's actually better for white to play knight h3 in this position. For example, knight c6, knight e2, knight b4, knight e to f4. It's a very good maneuver to know in these lines. Getting a knight to f4, knight takes on d3, queen takes on d3, knight b6, and white castled long. Okay, and you can see already that white's got a pretty good setup here. He's got a blockade in the center and possible attacking chances on the king side. And in one game, black played bishop d7, rook h to g1, knight c4, and now g4, which is a really good attacking move, trying to open lines against the king. c5, d takes on c5, queen a5, and king b1. White just wanted to protect the a2 square, and white should be a little bit better in these positions, mainly based on all the presence of the minor pieces on the king side. Instead of bishop d7 in this line, c5 could also be played, but then you just take on c5, knight c4 for example, king b1, a good winning move. Knight takes e5 here, looks like white lost a pawn, queen e2, and bishop f6, knight h5. And after exchange of pawns, black got his knight to c4, but again, this knight f4 idea combined with the open h file is still giving white a lot of play in these lines. So nothing concrete here, but just some things to keep in mind. And so in this game, after castling, or in this game, instead of playing f5 in this position, like we just looked at, c5 was played, which is probably a little bit better. Queen h5, a nice attacking idea. So white's centering in on the h7 square and tempting black still to try to open the position. Black should never take this bishop now, since that would give white this queen and rook battery on the h file. So black has to play g6 here. He has to shut down the bishop on this diagonal, attacking the queen. So the queen moves to h6, and now black takes on d4. Now, white could have moved his knight at this point, maybe to e2 or possibly to this square, and try to go here. Those are all very normal looking ideas, but instead white played the best move here, which is actually knight f3, sacrificing a whole knight. In the game, black took on e5, but let's look at what would happen if black took on c3, took the knight. h5 is just a very powerful move in this position. And after c takes b2, because what else? You can't take here because there's a threat, so that would be a very quick game. So if you take on b2, now rook b1, bishop b4 check, let's say, king d1, f6, h takes on g6 here. And you see black's position is starting to fall apart. He can't take here because that would be a mate in 2 after queen checks on g6. The king moves to h8, and then there's a mate on h6. So it'd be a mate in 3. And you can't not take the pawn because there's a threat on h6, and on h7, I'm sorry. And if black would play a move like queen e7, now all of a sudden you're just taking here, and these 2 pawns are just going to be unstoppable. So what happened is that after queen h5, g6 was played, c takes d4, knight f3. Seeing that, this variation where h5 is very strong, black decided to take on e5 instead. And white took the knight. And now black took on c3. So you can pause the video if you want. White played a very good move. It's not a winning move, but it's a very nice attacking move that you might be able to find. And it's actually the #1 engine move. But go ahead and pause the video here. And the move that you should have found is knight takes g6, exclam. After f takes g6, and it doesn't matter which pawn takes here. But after f takes g6, bishop takes g6, h takes g6, so white sacrifices everything on g6, queen takes on g6, check, and now we just get a perpetual like this. And the game was a draw. So what can we say about that game? Well, black had plenty of chances to go wrong. White kept an attack going and sacrificed this whole knight to get a drawn position here. Now instead of just going for this draw, if you want to play on in a position like this, you don't want to accept the draw, you could play on with rook h3. Rook h3 is really strong, and if black ever takes on b2, rook b1 is also good, and then you're ready to meet bishop b4 with c3. Now the rook is defending. Those are just some basic ideas if you want to play that line. But if you want to if you're good with the draw and that's all you need, you don't need a win, then this is a nice line to play. So you can play for a draw or for a win, and that's up to you. All right, thank you.